Not gonna lie to you, I wanted to cancel a couple times. This is
Okay.
not an easy.
No, I totally get that.
Because I have a big corporate job, and like this is like night
Yeah.
and day who I am and shit. But it has given me PTSD throughout the years.
Yeah.
I've buried it, and it'll come up every once in a while when, for example, and this is one of the reasons why I've always wanted to tell it. One, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it's a fucking scary story.
Right.
But two is the nature of like Ouija boards and how like people are so ignorant was probably the best word I can figure it, because it's the unknown and like people think it's just a game. So what brought this up again, because it comes up the feel of like wanting to like tell it. Of course, we're always around the spooky season, but like had a coworker the other day, was like, young girl. She's like, she's white elephant gifts. She's going to several parties, young, fun. And she says, she got a Viking hat with like, the beer you put on the side and you drink it and it's, funny, haha, right? And she got some other like tchotchkes for like other gifts and stuff like that. One, she mentioned that she got a Ouija board because she wanted to piss off like, her family members. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, if you only knew what it can do.
Welcome to Houston Strange. My name is Adam and I will be your host. Today's episode will be the final installment of season 1 and it is an incredible story. I have a few interesting cases lined up for season 2, but this is where I need your help. If you have personal stories you'd like to share, or if you know someone in Houston and the surrounding area that you think would be willing to share their experiences, reach out to me through Instagram at Houston_strange or through the website houstonstrange.com. That's actually how I got today's episode. Stephanie reached out to me through social media saying that she grew up in Spring Branch, just a few minutes from where I live. She had an experience in the 90s that changed her perspective, and she wanted to share it so that others could learn from her naivety. Now, I'm aware of the dangers of meeting up with strangers off of the internet, but it's also important to me that my interviewees are comfortable when sharing their stories. Stephanie made it clear that she was not comfortable conducting the interview in her house, not because she didn't know me, but because she was afraid that discussing this experience in her personal safe space might have negative effects. So in an extremely Houston fashion, we met at a bar in the Spring Branch area, which was all but camouflaged in a non-assuming little strip mall, complete with gas pumps in the parking lot, nestled in amongst private residences, used car lots, and mom and pop restaurants. I made my way through the half-full bar, scanning people's faces, not knowing what Stephanie looked like or if she had come with an acquaintance, through to the surprisingly quaint garden smoking area out the back. Sitting at one of the picnic benches, Stephanie was well dressed with long hair covering her shoulders. She looked like a no-nonsense businesswoman just a few years older than myself. The hint of a cardigan with a subtle decorative skull design beneath her overcoat was the only clue that this formality might just be a facade for her corporate 9 to 5. I introduced myself, set up the mics and sat down just in time for heavy metal music to start blaring out of the speakers behind us, which I've done my best to clean up. It was a cold night, especially for Houston. Stephanie was nursing a single beer. We could hear people in the bar, cars at the busy intersection just outside and driving down the street behind us, and yet I couldn't help but feel just a slight tinge of isolation, as though we were truly hidden away out here.
So, yes, I've grew up here, My family still lives here. I grew up on a street, that was a dead-end street, and there wasn't a lot of people. The street it was a railroad track on the back end, and, we would, run around. It was the 80s, and this story takes place in the 90s, so kind of give thought of like how things were back then. We were like latchkey kids. We weren't watched over by parents. They trusted that, our asses would be in by, the street lights came on. We played in everybody's house. There was so much trust in anybody who lived on the block, Of course, we knew everybody too. The technology was not what it is now. So think about no smartphones, no, laptops. Nothing's no CGI. None of this what they have these days. So everything came from the imagination of your mind. So anything that was like taboo, you had to like learn about it in a library or word of mouth. And back then, when I was growing up, there was a bunch of kids living on the block. They eventually moved away. And where this story takes place, there wasn't a lot of kids left on the street. It was me and my other friend. So if I can, do you want me to show you a picture of the house so I can show you a visual at least? That's why. And
Stephanie showed me a fairly recent picture of the house that she had taken from Google Maps, just a 6-minute drive from where we were sitting. It looks like an idyllic little single-storey Houstonian house. Well-aged trees provide ample shade and a little privacy from the not-too-busy street. There's fences on either side of the well-groomed lawn, but they seem to belong to the neighbours. Roses adorn a brick-enclosed mailbox, adding to the picturesque quality of the house. And other than the barely noticeable Christmas lights hanging from the eaves, the house seems timeless, like it wouldn't be out of place in any decade. There are no sidewalks, just a white line before the tarmac meets grass, and I can almost picture Stephanie and her pals hopping over the drainage ditch to go knocking for their friend.
So think about these houses are like from the 1950s. They're big lots. So you have the house sitting on this big piece of property. There was no fences in between. So you can like run across the neighbor's yard and, knock on their door. You can even enter, walk in. It's really wild back in the day. You can like walk in their house. Hey, what's going on, Mrs. Smith? Is Jimmy here to play? And it was, those days were awesome. It's something that we will never see again. Yeah. The trust is gone. So if you can see a lot, this is the house it took place in. Like I said, give you a visual again. We're latchkey kids. Parents did not give a shit about us. And I hate to put it that way, but it was, we're left our own devices, and that's created mischief. So this room right here is what I'm going to be talking about. So this family here, it was a lady at the time, a older lady, and her husband lived there. Very nice people. Their niece, girl named April, came down to move with them. And at the time I was like into like, UFOs and like dinosaurs, I was 14. So in 9th grade, my neighbor, who was my bestie, she was in 13. She was coming into like, she was like 8th grade or whatnot. And April, who moved there to live with her aunt and uncle, she was a troubled teen. She was 16, she's a couple years older, really cool, smoked and like did all like cool stuff and cursed and like, right. We kind of wanted to hang out with her because she was like the cool kid on the block and stuff like that. And at school, all the boys like liked her and stuff like that. I was like, oh, we always looked up to her and shit. But anyways, she was talking one day about, hey, because we were, all supernatural, ghosts and, have you seen, unsolved mysteries? It was a big show one time, which was on one of your podcasts too. I was like, oh, I remember that story. Yeah. She's like, oh, well, hey guys, I got a Ouija board. Yeah. And it's my aunt's, she's not messing with it and whatnot. And she started telling some stories and we were getting all excited. So and let me back it up some. My friend next door, her name was Joyce and her brother was Wade. He was much older and we didn't see too much of him. He, older dude, had his own buddies, whatnot. So me and Joyce hung out and we're still pretty naive kids and shit like that, but we're all like, oh, wow, you got to reach. And she's like, let me tell you some stories. So she gave some background and she even taught us like rules. And we were just so like intrigued. She even said one time that she came from like up north somewhere, I don't know, Michigan, Wisconsin, somewhere up there. She was messing with one night with one of her friends and she ended up having a coffee mug thrown at her head, flew off a table and smacked her. She walked home scared to death. We were like, oh my God, you got to see something? Something happened to you? Oh, wow. Well, you get what you asked for. And we were so excited because she's like, yeah, let's have a session one night. Come on by. And we were like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. So again, if I show you this picture here, this is a better picture. The entrance to the house, living room, but this is the room I'm going to be talking about. It's about an 8 by 10. So you have this window here. There's a window right here on this side. There used to be an AC unit out over there. There's a bed, and this is it was a radio, and it had a cassette player. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling this story. I'm a little fucking freaked out. Okay. This was like a pile, stuff like, clothes and, like, boxes and, like, just random things. There wasn't much to this room at all. The windows were, open. So, to back it up, she says, "Hey, come on by." Later on, she tells us all, like, if you play on a day that has rained, you're gonna get an evil spirit. You have to keep the doors closed, or things can enter the room without your permission. That's how she got a coffee cup thrown at her mug at her head. If you play with the opposite sex, you'll get a stronger, like, energy. These are things that she's told us. Play at nighttime, you get a stronger energy or entity. She knew her stuff, which made me think that she was more in dabbling in more of, like, witchcraft and whatnot. She told us some things, but at the time it was just, we were too, like, excited. Like, oh, let's see a ghost. So she says, okay, later tonight we're walking, and again, latchkey kids, we're walking about a half mile to the corner mart, grabbing some, like, drinks or whatnot, snacks. And she's like, come over later tonight. Maybe like somewhere 7, 8 o'clock when it's dark, and we'll start. And she goes, I've been talking to someone on the board because she plays by herself. You know, it's someone that's pretty strong. So let's go, come on by. I had told my friend, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Okay, we'll see you there.
Stephanie had arrived to the bar, prepared with pen and paper, which she took out at this point in order to provide me with a visual layout of the room where this story takes place. You'll hear her reference this as she tells the story. Now though, April greets the two friends, Stephanie and Joyce, at the door, dressed as some sort of old-fashioned mystic. She set the mood in the bedroom already, and this doesn't exactly ease Stephanie's nerves.
Her aunt and uncle are there. Aunt, I mean, again, nobody's caring what we're doing. They're basically turning a blind eye. He's playing the computer. He has some kind of work, and I'm not saying computer. It's like an old school, like IBM, like those big box ones. He has a TV going. He's watching the football game. He's not even blinking at us. He's just like, whatever. And her aunt is cooking in the kitchen. She's doing laundry. She's walking around. They have a cat, and that's primarily it in the house. She goes, come with me. We go into this room. And this is actually a water bed, but we sit on the edge over here. The room is dark. She has candles lit everywhere. And she says, I sit on the side. She goes, which one do y'all want to, like, play? And so it's just me and my friend Joyce. And Joyce is like, okay, let me sit down. I'll play with you. And so they sit here on the floor. And I don't want to scribble over it because it moves around. People move around. So Joyce, her back is to the door, and April is facing the door. She puts the plancha on the board, and it starts, like, it kind of warms up. And I'm just like, ooh, this is crazy. And she starts asking questions. And I will tell you, throughout this story, I don't remember her questions because the environment itself is what spooked the shit out of me. So she is playing, and it starts to speed up some, and movement is going, and it starts doing all these figure eights on the board where it got, like, a good flow going. I'm thinking, oh, they're probably just fucking with me. They're going like that. But all of a sudden, you hear this in the inside the door. And I'm like, okay, dismiss it. But I'm looking, and my friend's looking at me while she's moving, like it's moving inside the door. Then you hear it inside the closet. I'm like, is she have someone in there? There's no way. No way. Because I knew everybody on the streets. You know, she don't have like that many friends. She just moved here. So you would hear it in the closet. This banging, this rapping. It would move to the other closet. Inside, you can tell, to the door, to the windows. It would move like something was traveling. And I was like, I was told April, I'm like, hey, can you say goodbye? I'm like, at first I was excited about it. I was like, wow, I've never heard anything like this. And then I started getting scared. And the noises started doing a heartbeat because it knew it was spooking me. And my friend looked spooked too. This went on for it felt like an eternity. But I'm pretty sure it's just for a few minutes. I'm like, April, could you please say goodbye? I can't do this right now. And she's like, I'm trying. It's moving. And it keeps going.
Stephanie is visibly uncomfortable at this point. She's holding back tears and her hands are starting to shake. I ask her if she'd like to take a break or anything, but she's determined to get this story out. She takes a deep breath and pushes on.
She's like, okay, I'll try. And when she's trying, the door that I'm sitting right by, the doorknob starts to jiggle. I said, April, the door's opening up. Please say goodbye. And I was getting angry at the time. And my friend was kind of panicking. She's like, move the piece. And she's like, I'm trying. And you can see her hands were kind of gripping in to move it. And the door starts opening. And as the door starts opening, I look out. I don't see anything. And I was like, my heart was pounding. I reached for the door. She's like, shut the door. And I reached for the door handle. And I swear to you, I could feel what could be a handprint on my arm, though I don't see anything. I feel this heat, like an energy heat. It was so odd, I couldn't even explain it, of a handprint on my hand. So I pushed it with my foot instead, slammed it shut with my foot and let go. And I said, I got to get out of here. I got to leave. She eventually pulls the goodbye. And as that happens, the tape on the radio behind me, although I just played a song, we basically just not what felt like I said like eternity, was just a few minutes in. The tape starts going click, 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 click. Someone put it on pause. Someone fucking shut it down where it started clicking. I flick on the lights and she gets up. The door opens. We open. I'm like, we're done. We're done. I don't see anything. So I'm like, don't hear any more noises, but we're fucking done. And I'm like, a door opens and her face, cause she's facing the door. And I'm like talking to my friend and she's facing the door and her face turns pale as a ghost. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck did you see? And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm in panic mode. Friend's in panic mode. Now April's like, holy shit. She's like, I just seen some kind of black mass go through the ceiling. And I was like, please do not fuck with me. Don't do this to me. I'm like, no fucking way. I'm just shaking. And she's like, let's just take a break. Let's get up. Let's go walk out. Okay, cool.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I usually work long into the night when I'm putting these episodes together, but this one had me checking over my shoulder. As Stephanie is describing this scene, she almost offhandedly mentions how the planchette is moving in a figure of 8 motion. I didn't react at the time because I wanted to see if she would say anything about this, but other than talking about it happening again, she didn't mention anything in particular. Some of you might already know where I'm going with this. It is not an uncommon occurrence in Ouija board stories, but this is definitely the first time I've heard someone bringing it up in a first-hand experience. We've gone deeper into the potential subconscious interference that can occur when people use Ouija boards in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go back over it now, but recently, I actually had the pleasure of guesting on episode 96 of Perplexity, a mystery podcast hosted by my friend Kadra Brannan. And we discussed this exact phenomenon. Kadra gave me permission to use her episode here, but to be honest, her research and writing is actually just so good that when I tried to cut it down to fit in, it just didn't do it justice. So I'll link her show in the show notes, and I'm also going to re-upload that episode to this feed in the next couple of days so you can learn more about the history of Ouija boards in general and Zozo. The Zozo phenomenon allegedly first showed up in popular culture in March 2009 when paranormal investigator Darren Evans posted his story online. According to Evans, in 1982, he found a Ouija board surrounded by glass jars containing the remains of blackbirds in the crawl space beneath his girlfriend's house. The word Zozo was written on the front of the board while the reverse contained strange hand-carved inscriptions. Evans decided to go ahead and use this board, and the first time he did, the planchette seemed to have a mind of its own, speeding around the board in this figure of 8 pattern. On most Ouija boards, the letters Z and N are the two farthest points, with the letter O being just beside the N. In Evan's story, the planchette's figure of 8 went from Z to O repeatedly, and that's where this name Zozo came from. Evans claimed that he eventually made contact with Zozo and a years-long relationship was formed with this entity. The entity would go on to tell Evans things like he was his guardian angel, that he was here to bring his family to paradise, but when asked where this was, the planchette reportedly spelled out hell. Evans blamed a series of near tragedies and health issues on this entity. When Evans posted his experience online in 2009 though, he soon discovered that many other people had extremely similar encounters, although maybe without realizing it, like in Stephanie's case. There are many theories as to who or what this Zozo phenomena could be, ranging from an ancient being by the name of Pazuzu, known for his involvement in the infamous Roland Doe exorcism story, to Zozo being a thought form created by people's subconscious minds. If you want to learn more about this subject, I sincerely urge you to check out episode 96 of Perplexity and Mystery podcast. It's also not lost on me that Evan's story sounds quite similar to Lawyer's sister's story from episode 4. But I was genuinely surprised when Stephanie almost flippantly mentioned this little detail. Lastly, I am aware that I'm not doing a great amount of arguing for the skeptic side here. I don't necessarily believe in the Zozo entity as a big scary monster, but I find the phenomena fascinating, and I genuinely believe everything Stephanie has told me so far.
At that time, my friend Joyce's brother came home from work or where he came from. She called him up and said, "Hey, can you come on over?" She's all into it. She's excited. She's getting a rise out of it. Me and my friend Joyce, we're panicked. We're even holding hands because I'm like, I am so scared. So her brother, who had the biggest crush on April, all the dudes did. They were like, "Oh, the spooky chick. She's fabulous." He's like, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you want. I'll come on over." Okay. So he comes over and I'm like, "April, I can't go back in there. There's no way. I can't deal with that. My friend couldn't deal with that. We're scared. We're like so frightened." And I felt like something was like watching me. She's like, "That's fine." She goes, "Let me just, we'll go in here and we'll do it. Okay. Me and, Joyce's brother, wait, we'll go and do this real quick." And then, she's all into it. She loves this shit. I'm scared. So me and my friend sit out in this living room area with her uncle who's toying around on the computer, and Joyce is sitting next to me on the couch. We're watching TV. April and Wade go back into this room, shut the door, and I guess they proceeded weirdly. And I don't know how to explain this. The only thing, as of age and giving with, the time of 30 years after what, 30 plus years of this shit happening, the only thing I can think of is the same thing. It's the frequency, the energy, and like knowing that it can fuck with me and the other scared one, my friend Joyce, was when they started. Me and her heard the banging, the knocking, and it sounded like it was by the TV, which would have been by those closets. And I'm like, this is so fucked up. And I didn't say, I looked at her, she looked at me, we knew we heard it. We just kind of were holding hands, scared shitless and just, you know, didn't say anything. And I just proceeded to watch TV and ignore it. Again, what felt like an eternity, which is a few minutes, they came out and they claimed, I said, "Did you hear the knocking again?" She's like, "No, not this time." I wanted to cry because I felt that thing was after like us. It knew we were very vulnerable and we were kids, and it was like trying to feed our energy. I don't know. I can't explain these things, but I know what I felt and I know what I heard, and I think I'm a pretty sane person to, you know. So they came out. When I said we were hearing knocks on the wall right here by the TV, she's like, "No way." She's like, "I didn't hear anything." She's, "Are y'all fucking with us?" So I'm like, "No, April, we're not." I'm like, "I hear as clear as day." Her father, excuse me, her uncle didn't say anything. He's still playing on the computer. Again,
He just
ignoring.
didn't react.
No. Again, these are people like that. Again, this is a time and age. My parents would have done the same. They would have been like, "Oh, you kids," you know? So she somehow convinced us to go back in there. And like a dipshit, we went and we were like, okay. Because I think at the time, I was so far gone of being in shock. It was just like, okay, we'll do it. Because I felt more safe being around her for some reason. Because now I know that if we leave, we're still going to hear it. It's still going to be fucking toying with us. We can't go anywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? So she's like, I'm just going to, try to get rid of it now. We go back in that room and I'm like, I'm not doing this. And my friend Joyce was like, I'm not touching it either. She's like, that's fine. Your brother, Wade's going to do this. So I said, but the door opens. And she's like, okay, Wade's going to put his back to the door so the door doesn't come open. We'll do it with the lights on. Don't worry, okay? We're just going to try to get rid of it and whatnot. I said, okay. And while we're setting up, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here. Okay, she's going to sit here and, everything's happening quickly. The cat kind of strolls by and he's like trying to because Wade put his, starting to back up to the door and the cat's like, oh, something to play with. So you see a paw, right? A little paw comes in. Okay, it's a Kit Kat. She's like, let me put a shirt. She grabs a shirt from a hanger, puts it down on underneath the door. So the cat doesn't claw at his back while he's like trying to playing with the board and stuff doesn't distract him, I guess you want to say. So the shirt is like tucked under the door, lights are on. We go to come back to where we're sitting at. The board is on the ground. The plancha is flipped over. She picks it up. The knocking already starts. This time they hear it. Both of them. And this time it's so loud. On the fucking door where it's rattling Wade's back. And he thinks it's funny. I'm just shaking. At this point, it's pure adrenaline and where I feel almost zombie-like, where I'm just like, I'm in a movie. It's happening. I'm just going through the motions. Boom, boom, boom in the closet door. Boom, boom, boom on the corner of the house. Then the AC unit gets rattled. Starts picking, rattling it. Boom, boom, boom. Just going at random spots all around. And it just almost felt like I don't know where I'm at now. I'm in pure panic, just freaking out, holding my friend's hands. And I can feel her shaking. And we're just looking at each other like, oh my God, what did we ask for? I don't know what's going on. They're on the board. It's figure eight, swimming. She's trying to ask you questions and it's just flickering back and forth. I don't even, can you tell you what it's spelling? At this time, I'm just paying attention around my surroundings. Boom, boom, boom. The rattles. There's no one in these closets. They checked. It's just going around each spot back and forth. And then it does the heartbeat again. It's just scaring the piss out of me. And hearing it go from the door to the closet, I just so happened, I looked over at the window and I seen this black mass. It had no shape. It was so black that it wasn't the color black. It was like a space, like an emptiness, a void. And it floated right past that window. And then the AC unit started rattling. And it came through again. I didn't see it. It took that one time. I said, please. I got to leave. I can't be here anymore. I've had enough. She did what she needed to do. She was just on that board, telling you need to go back to the hell, that the place in hell where you came from. She's just going off, telling it shit. The shirt underneath the door starts being pulled in and out of the door. Like, it was like you would see the shirt and then all of a sudden you could see it kind of being pulled out a little bit and then stuffed back in the room, and then pulled out a little bit and then stuffed back in the room. Pulled, stuffed. And I see it, and it went in one more time, came back out. And at that time, she closed it out. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, we're not doing this anymore. I'm like, we need to go home. I'm upset. Everybody got up. She opens the door, and the shirt that was stuffed in and out of under the bottom of the door to keep the cat out, it had a knot this big in it. So some took the shirt, knotted it once, knotted it twice to this giant knot, and left right there by that door. And after that, I stayed at my friend's house. Didn't tell my parents about it because, God bless, that would have been, oh, no, don't, why did you do that? And slept with the lights on. I probably slept with the lights on. It had to be a good month. After that, I didn't hang out with April a lot. In fact, I couldn't even tell you when she even left because she ended up not staying there that much longer. Eventually, like a year or two, I left and never really talked to these people again. I can find Joyce on, Facebook, whatnot, but we don't ever talk about what happened. It's something that we buried, and it doesn't come back out that much. And I will tell you, one of the last times I ever told stories, probably over 10 years ago. I mean, I know it's a real crazy story. But I wish those who think like the Ouija board is like a game, it is not a game. If your intent is to like put evil out and to get evil in your house, this is why I couldn't even talk to you about it in my house. I feel like things can attach to people. And at least that night, that thing was after us.
It's not completely unheard of for people to feel personally targeted by paranormal activity, but I actually can't believe how April's uncle seems totally oblivious to this situation, almost as though he's in some sort of trance. The knocking noises, this black entity zooming around, something trying to force the door open. This feels like an all-out attack on these kids. The knotted up shirt on the ground outside to me just feels like a final statement, proving that not only was this not the cat just trying to get in, but also it was a very real, tangible item left after an extremely surreal event. I shared my feelings with Stephanie, and I personally believe that this whole episode was some sort of warning. And if it was, it certainly worked. At least for Stephanie. I'm fairly sure that she won't be rushing out to play with Ouija boards anytime soon. I'd love to sit down with April though and learn a little bit more about her story. Was she able to just put the board away and forget about it? Did she sleep with the lights on that night? And April stands for so much in this story too. The fleeting friendships of adolescence, the cool new person who made us all feel a little bit jealous and a little bit insecure, caused us to act out a little bit or to do things that we wouldn't normally do because we really wanted to impress them. We wanted to be like them when really we were all in the same boat. Was this a genuine Zozo encounter? I don't know. But I do know that I will be sleeping with the lights on tonight. Let me know what you think it might have been. Comment on YouTube or Spotify or DM me at Houston_Strange on Instagram. A big thank you to Kadra from Perplexity and Mystery Podcast. Don't forget to check her show out and keep an eye out for that episode to drop on this feed in the next couple of days. A huge thank you to Stephanie for trusting me with her story and having faith in Houston Strange. This has been season 1. Thank you to everyone for listening, following along. I'm still very much an independent production. I plan on starting a Patreon with season 2 maybe to fund these little adventures, equipment, etc. So let's see where season 2 takes us. Stay strange, Houston.